Hi, this is Ellen from the Chili Dog, and today I'm finishing a pair of these Beekeeper socks, and I'd like to show you the elastic bind-off that I'm using. Whenever you knit socks from the toe up, it's important to use a stretchy bind-off method so that the socks can easily be pulled over your foot and heel, and the cuff doesn't cut into your leg when you wear the socks. There are a variety of different bind-offs that work well for sock cuffs. And for these socks, I'm going to use the elastic bind-off, which is a slightly stretchier version of a lace bind-off. So let me show you how it's done. Make sure to watch the video all the way to the end because I'll be sharing a tip especially for binding off in the round. As I'm working my elastic bind-off, I'm going to continue knitting in my established ribbing pattern. So if a stitch is knit, I'm going to knit into it, and if a stitch is purled, I will purl into it. So to begin the bind off, you work the first two stitches. My first one's a knit, my second's a purl. And after working those first two stitches, position your yarn so you're ready to knit the next stitch. So next we're going to slip these two stitches from right to left and then knit them together through the back loops. And if you want to save yourself a little time, you don't even have to drop the right needle out of the stitches. As long as you insert your left needle in front of the right needle, you're already set up to knit the stitches together through the back loops. So I will do just that, knit them together through the back loops. Work one stitch. Position my yarn to knit, slip the stitches from right to left and knit them together through the back loops. Work one stitch, reposition the yarn to knit if necessary, slip the stitches from right to left, and then knit them together through the back loops. And just continue on in that manner until you just have one stitch left on your right needle and all the rest have been bound off. When one loop remains and all the rest of your stitches have been bound off, you can trim your working yarn so that you have enough of a tail to weave in, and then open up this last stitch and pull the yarn tail through that very last loop. And you can also drop your knitting needle out of the loop as you're doing that. So if you were working back and forth in rows, you could simply weave in this yarn tail and be done. However, when you're working in rounds, you'll notice this little stair-step gap in between the last stitches that I bound off and the first stitches I bound off. And we want to close up that gap. So this technique works anytime you're binding off in the round. It doesn't just have to be used for an elastic bind off. It could be used for other bind off methods as well. So you take your yarn tail and string it onto a yarn needle. And then look at the edge of the bind off. And you want to look at the beginning of your bind off. And you're looking for the first V stitch that points to the right. And you're going to insert your yarn needle under both strands of that V along the edge. So here's mine. I'm going to insert my yarn needle through both strands and pull the yarn tail all the way through. And you can see how that gap kind of disappears there. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to take your yarn needle and go back down through the last stitch that you bound off. And this time you're just going under the back loop of the stitch, not through both loops. And then as you pull that, it kind of covers up your knot. If you maybe push it down in a little bit, it covers up your knot and it closes that little gap so it's not as noticeable. And at this point you can go ahead and you could weave in your yarn tail on the wrong side of your work. So now you're done, and your sock cuff has this nice, neat, very stretchy edge that won't cut into your leg when you wear the sock. I hope you enjoyed learning how to do a very stretchy elastic bind off. And if you did, Make sure to subscribe to my channel, The Chilly Dog, on YouTube so you don't miss any of my weekly tips and tutorials. Until next time, happy knitting!